All right, well, thank you everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us and sharing our story today around Amgen's journey towards building a global 360 view with our customers with Lakehouse. My name is Scott Hirayama. I am the global commercial IT lead for data and analytics at Amgen, and I'm along here with my colleague Ben Wan, and we're tag teaming in presenting today the set of topics where I will start off in talking about our journey and the ambition we had around getting that 360 view of our customers. We'll talk a little bit about our Agile Transformation and share with you some of the business capabilities and the outcomes that we have enabled in the past 2 years. I'll then hand it over to Ben, and she'll talk about some of the data challenges that we had along that journey, and then talk about some of the technology capabilities that we've enabled through that time span. Okay, so let me give you an overview, of a little bit about Amgen and who we are. So we are a global biotechnology company where our focus is really looking at how do we unlock the potential of biology for patients suffering serious illnesses. A little bit about who we are. So we are in 100 countries today. We're about 26 billion in terms of revenue. We market 25 products today, and we have about 24,000 staff. How we engage today is really on what we call the commercial and the medical front, where we regularly engage what we call our doctors and healthcare providers in helping them in terms of how to best treat our patients. What happened is with the onset of the pandemic, it really changed the way that we did that engagement. Pre-COVID, I would say our stats indicate we had 95% of our interactions were face-to-face. At the height of COVID, that plummeted to 20% of face-to-face interactions. So we clearly had to change the way that we interacted with our customers. And during this time, we did have plans and strategies around going digital, but with with COVID, we had to accelerate that, right? We didn't have a choice, and it was unplanned. So what we did is we looked at ways of working, and so Agile was one way that we said we have to change the way that we worked. Secondly, we were also modernizing our data architecture and adopting a configuration framework by using the Databricks Lakehouse that Ben will talk about later. At the end, what we were able to produce was a comprehensive and connected customer-centric view, right? It provided the insights and the intelligence for a host of different constituents that we serve in our IT organization and commercial. That included our field team, our executives, and our marketers. At the end of the day, we have a much stronger customer experience. And underlying that is the data, right? So you can see here in some of the stats that we provided here is we maintain 14 million records of global HCPs. We have 2+ petabytes of accessible data, and we have access to 1 million+ US patients to our patient support programs. So the data is there, and what we'll share with you shortly is how we went about bringing all that data together. I think you're hearing a thing around connected data, and that will be part of the message that we'll be taking away today. So let's talk a little bit about our Agile transformation. So what we did is we made investments in Agile, and we looked at sort of how do we provide greater business value to our stakeholders, right? And we looked at 3 facets. One is transparency, right? How do we start to produce the types of capabilities and deliverables that really didn't stretch for a long time horizon? We wanted to get away from the waterfall projects, right? That sort of went on for months and months and really didn't produce anything until the end of the day. And so our idea was how do you do continuous ongoing enablers? And so we looked at a product team first in terms of how to drive that collaboration. We've produced 8 product teams around our DNA ecosystem, and I'll talk later and show you a little bit, an illustration of what those product teams look like today. And thirdly, we looked at how we best prioritize. So we did adopt Agile best practices, right? We went and used 2-week sprint cycles. We did minimum viable products. We did ongoing demos to really show our business partners what are some of the capabilities that they would be getting throughout that life cycle. The other thing we did, and I'll touch upon some bullet points here on our vision side, is we also made investments in talent. What Amgen was a number of years ago was our IT organization was more like vendor managers, where we hired a lot of consultants and contingent workers to do the work, and we managed them. That has now changed. We have now invested in technology and the talent, meaning we've brought on data engineers, data analysts, and now data scientists. So that investment, and you'll see how it's paid off in really dedicating the resources to really drive the products that we are pushing forward in this space. So how are we structured today? So you can see we went after what we call a global to local product model. At the top, you see the global product teams that we've enabled, starting with master data management, connected data, reporting, and decision sciences. And their focus is twofold. One is to focus on standardization and scaling. How do we scale our solutions and standardize them across the globe? At the bottom, we were looking at how to enable local capabilities. So we did that both in our JPAC, Japan, Asia Pacific region, what we call LMAC, which is Europe, Latin America, Middle East countries, and then also our US market, which is our largest. The idea there is how they have specific local needs either at the affiliate the country or at the local brand level. And we wanted to make sure that we were listening and hearing to what their needs are. And in culmination, you can see in the middle there is what we called our technology bus or our tech platforms. And that's where we have consolidated all of our data engineers. And what we've done there is assign them to each of our 7 other product teams, right? And formed a community where each of those product teams in themselves have their own product roadmaps, but together we have one scaled agile framework that we all align and work under. So we do have what we call quarterly big room planning or program increment cycles, where these 8 product teams come together. They have their own set of features, but they're all done in harmonization so that we understand the interdependencies and really determine what the business imperatives and the priorities are. And in concert, you can see at the very bottom, we work with our IT shared services. So if some of you attended the earlier session at 2:50 this afternoon, you might have heard from our enterprise data management team here at Amgen, and they talked a little bit about what their journey was like. So very similar paths, but there's a very strong collaboration and connection that we have with our enterprise colleagues at Amgen. So when you look at sort of our capabilities, I also want to talk a little bit about our value streams and where we emphasize specific capabilities that we were maybe deficient or needed some attention in really bringing this all together. So in the data mastering portion, right, we really focused on the single source of truth. In the past, everyone had different definitions of who the customer was, and we also stored that data in different repositories. So there were a bunch of silos within the company where we didn't have that single source of truth. That has now changed, and working with our enterprise colleagues, we've now sort of brought that all together. And so that's been a big win for us, so that we know who truly is the customer, and we have one source of truth for that. The second piece that we focused on in the value stream was data connectivity and getting access. And again, if you listen to the other Amgen speech, you heard about how we brought all that data together and using our enterprise data fabric and ways to connect the data. And I'll show you an illustration shortly in terms of what are some examples of how that data how we connected that data across different functions and removed those silos. So that was a key success factor for us. The third thing we did is we standardized our KPIs and reporting capabilities, the visualizations through Tableau and other means. What that means is when different groups within Amgen were reporting the same type of KPI reports, the data matched each other. What happened in the past was you had our marketing team presenting to our CMO, and you had our sales team presenting similar information, and they didn't match. And that was a problem, right? So that no longer is the case, is that they're all the same, they go after the same source of truth, and they report against the same type of data. The fourth area for us, which is I would say a continuum in our ongoing journey, is a focus on advanced analytics and measurements. So we believe we've done a fairly good job on 1, 2, and 3. 4 is for us is the next horizon, right? Where we really want to look at some of the AI capabilities and make some inroads in both the predictive and prescriptive analytics space. So that for us is sort of where we're going next, and our focus really on what we call the omni-channel experience, meaning we know anything and everything about the physician or the doctor. Today, I would argue we have a multi-channel approach, meaning we know what the doctors are doing from what our marketer is doing, or what from our field force is doing, right? But they're all sort of in different silos. So again, this is about tearing down those silos and bringing that together so that we really can orchestrate that customer engagement with our doctors or healthcare providers. So that's where we're going to go next. And then what underpins this is sort of what we call our DNA technology platform. For us, what we call is our city planning blueprint, if you will, which is we use common platforms. We don't go and pick our favorite technology out there. It's very much uniform within Amgen, which we follow the standards. It simplifies things, it lowers our total cost of ownership, and it really streamlines our ability to bring and connect that data much, much better together than we ever have in the past. So these are some of the key wins and the changes that we've incorporated over the past several years at Amgen. So what do you mean by connected data, right? And so this is what we've done in the past 2 years at Amgen. So COVID, again, presented us with a challenge and an opportunity to really tear down those silos within the functional areas within Amgen. So with my team and I and Ben, as we support the commercial space, we really wanted to go after other types of data that sat in other organizations within the company. Also, we purchase a lot of data externally, right, from the likes of IQVIA and others. But this is where we started to work and across the aisle and work with the compliance organization, or with our medical team, or with the clinical team, right? And said, hey, we want to do it in a compliant manner, but we would love to get that information so we can better understand who the HCP is and how they're interacting. So with compliance, we got from them the aggregate public spend data, right? From a medical team, we got MedInfo, so we were able to bring that data together, again, connecting it through our master data management. And same with clinical trials. We really wanted to understand which principal investigators were also doctors who were prescribing our drugs, because then we'd have a better understanding of who that community was and could better engage those types of doctors and HCPs. So that's an example of what we've been doing over the past 2 years in terms of connected data. So I'll give you another illustration of what that has enabled. So Dr. Smith, right? Who is Dr. Smith? So today, we're able to answer some key fundamental questions around who Dr. Smith is, right? What is their practice? Or, do they specialize in cardiology or osteoporosis or inflammation, right? We have that information about Dr. Smith. Where do they work, right? So, are they part of a hospital network, right? And what's their formulary, right, that in terms of prescriptions? And then how do they practice in their domain, right? What's their ratio in terms of in-person versus virtual when they see patients? What are their prescribing patterns, right? Are they prescribing our products versus our competitor products, and why, right? So we get a lot of insights into their practice. And then how do they interact with Amgen itself, right? And again, it's tearing down those silos. So how are our marketers, right, working on campaigns? Or how's our field force interacting with those doctors? That annoying doctor, annoying sales rep that's in the doctor's office with donuts. Well, that was limited with COVID because, again, they weren't able to do those types of interactions. So they had other means digitally in terms of how they practiced there. So we wanted to understand, were those types of exercises or engagements really helping during this time of COVID? So lots of information. And then lastly, we also are able to see how are they interacting with other pharma companies, right? So again, the richness of that data that we get both internally, externally, really gave us the insight of who Dr. Smith is and how best to engage him or her. So the other thing, as I mentioned earlier, was standardizing on reports. So these are just examples of some of the different types of reports and that we had enabled for different personas. So for the field, we're able to provide them a very detailed profile of the doctor, right? What are who is engaging them when? What are the different types of products that they're prescribing? For marketers, we get to share with them, what types of marketing campaigns have they enacted and what's working and what's not working. And then for our executives, right, they want a global view. They want to see across all of Amgen's key brands, how are they performing across the globe and how are the interactions, right, between different brands? Are there differences? Are there similarities? What insights can they gain there? So in a sense, really tying that all together across all these different spectrums have really been valuable in us understanding who the customer is during this time. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bin Wan, who will talk about some of the data challenges that we had through our journey, and then talk about some of the technology capabilities that we've since enabled. Here you go, Bin.
So I'm going to switch to the technical side. Scott has talked about all this colorful slide, and my slide is a little bit more boring. But before we get to the colorful slide, all these insights, we actually faced a lot of challenges. Okay, this side also. Okay. The first challenge we're facing is on the technical platform side. We have hundreds of pipelines developed on the SnapLogic platform. And at the time, we're facing a lot of connectivity issues on SnapLogic and the Hadoop file system. We also encounter server crash, and we escalated to many to our partners in the product support team, and they are sitting there actually. So we have connectivity issues, we have out of memory issues, and also we do not have a workflow management system to manage the ETL dependency and to monitor the pipeline execution. The second challenge we're having is in the entire GDNA, which is the ex-US global commercial system, commercial platform, we have many teams working with countries and regions around the globe, yet we do not have technical governance. And the third challenge, which is the biggest challenge we're having, is we have slow data onboarding. So we could not meet the demand from the countries and regions to onboard data fast enough onto the global platform. Because of that, we have a lot of resistance from countries and regions who want to develop their own solution for data analytics. So with that means we need to make changes. From the technical perspective, we picked Databricks for data processing. We picked Apache Airflow for workflow orchestration. And also we need to establish technical governance. Most importantly, we need to develop a framework which will enable our data onboarding faster. So why do we choose Databricks? This one started 4 or 5 years ago. The reason is very simple. Back then, we evaluated another vendor. Databricks is only the platform of service for Apache Spark. But compared with the other vendor, Databricks provides a nicer user interface for cluster configuration. And also, you don't need to launch another cluster before you add it in the notebook. So the reason is really simple. But over the years, Databricks has developed into a unified system, unified platform for data engineer, data scientist, and data analyst. And also it provides an integrated development environment for, with Git integration. And Lakehouse is another addition, which combines the capability of data lake and traditional data warehouse, makes you look and feel like a database, yet with unlimited cloud storage. It has been a long journey for us from the technical side to go from, starting from 2021, we start to move away from Excel-based analysis to on-premise data warehouse and later on to Hadoop system. Over the time, we could not manage the data volume and data velocity. So starting from 2015 to 2017, which is not listed here, we start to do the cloud migration. And from 2017 to 2018, we start to use Databricks for the data processing on the US market. But back then, with the first version, Delta Lake is not there. So we have many intermediate layers of CSV files and Parquet files. We use JSON for configuration. The system is very hard to debug. And also requires, not all the automation is there, requires a huge support team, which is a huge operational team to make it run every week. Starting from end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019, that is the time when Databricks, actually during that time, ex-US side is on SnapLogic, so which has all the challenges I talked about. So at the end of 2018 to the beginning of 2019, this is when Databricks announced Delta Lake. And this is the same time, this is a big step toward cloud data warehouse for Databricks. And this is the time when Scott and I joined the organization, just in time for platform transformation. So we started on the ex-US side first. We established global to local architecture, global to regional architecture. We also developed configurable ingestion framework to resolve the issue for data onboarding. And from engineering, we also added automation on the DevOps and also disaster recovery for Airflow. From the engineering execution side, we established architecture governance and data model governance. So after that successful delivery for the ex-US side, we did the same thing on the US side for in 2020. So we aligned the architecture for the ex-US side DNA platform to the US side DNA platform. In 2020, starting from 2021, now we have both ex-US and US side ready. We started to work on the customer 360, which combines the data for medical, compliance, and commercial for both ex-US and US. That's how you see those colorful dashboards. As Databricks continues to evolve, we also continue to develop our capability on Databricks platform. We use Databricks charting and dashboard feature for ad hoc reporting. With the announcement of Databricks SQL endpoint at the end of last year, we started to shift our dashboard from Redshift into SQL endpoint. So as of now, we already retired one Redshift cluster in AWS Oregon region, which supports the customer 360 reports to the SQL endpoint. And the other thing is, most recently, just this quarter, we just finished the POC on ML ops using a Databricks feature store, ML flow, and also automating the ML model deployment using the webhook on the stage change, model state change. This is our high-level architecture for a global commercial data analytics platform. Various data sources ingested into data lake, and we use GitLab CI/CD capability for DevOps automation, use Airflow for workflow orchestration. And eventually, the final data sets is propagated into the regional Redshift. And we have 3 sets of Redshift and Tableau cluster deployed in 3 AWS regions. We have 1 set deployed in AWS Tokyo region to support JPAC, another one deployed in AWS Frankfurt region to support EU and intercontinental regions. The last one is in US Oregon region, AWS Oregon region, to support US, North, and South American countries. On the bottom of this slide, you can see, starting from this year, as I said, we just retired one of the Redshift cluster, which supports customer 360 dashboard. We switched that to SQL endpoint, and this effort is continue on. The next 2 slides, I will cover our ingestion framework, and this is the main framework which allow us to onboarding data faster. So the first one is the configuration master. This table covers all the data sources around the globe, which ingested into our commercial data lake. It talks about where's the file landed, for example, S3, SFTP, or any Viva system, CRM system databases, and its landing, archiving, staging location, or any intermediate layer tables related to this data set processing. Talking about whether it's incremental or not, the frequency of data, how do we need to process them, and how long do we need to store them in the history. And the second one is the file DQ configuration. This one talks about all the DQ rules before we process the file into the system. It also defines how critical this DQ is. Sometimes we do not process the file into the system. Sometimes we do process the file into the system, but attaching additional information at record level. For those things, fail the DQ. The third one is the unified configuration. This one is really for data model standardization. We have data sources from different country, region, and also even in the same country, you have data sources from different places we purchase. We need to do standardization for data model for reporting purpose. And so this one, unified configuration, is for that purpose. The next one, data stitch configuration. This configuration talks about how do we stitch the data from the same data source together. So how do we stitch data from today's load into the existing table combined with the previous load data? For example, if a data source has full load, then you just truncate and load into the table. If it's incremental, then it's complicated. You can be update, insert, delete, or you may be update, insert, delete, or you maybe have to different patterns existing. If a slow changing dimension, you need to add starting ending time for the record. Or sometimes if it's a monthly file contains 12 months of data, then you may have to go there deleting 11 months of data and appending the 12 months data on it. So this table configures that. The next one is the matrix engine configuration. This one talks about matrix engine configuration. The end result of that is additional columns are added into the incoming table or data frame, which contains the matrix configuration. The matrix configuration can be simple as addition, subtraction, or division among multiple columns, or it can be very complicated. You can have a customized function configured in the table, which we need to call a customized function, or you may have intermediate views and tables created for the matrix calculation. Eventually, it's one column added into your table to holding the result. The next one is another data quality configuration table. This one, we only run that after data is fully processed. These are business rule-related data quality check. And the result of the data quality check out of this table can be delivered as email attachment, or to a S3 bucket, to SFTP, or to another Delta table, which allow user to build a report on them. The next configuration table is outbound configuration table. This one specifies the outbound interface, which is for downstream to consume. Maybe you write a SQL statement to extracting data from our data lake into another destination table, or maybe you deliver to S3 bucket SFTP in the file format specified by the downstream. The last one is the Redshift replication. And this one specifies how the data from our data lake, which is all in AWS Oregon region, this is where Databricks is located, populated into our regional Redshift. This including a country list, maybe for JPAC, EU, also including how the data is populated into the Redshift, whether it's appending or upsert. So all these configuration tables, these are all the major configuration tables. The purpose for this configuration table is to enable us to have a common pipeline with common code reuse to enable fast data onboarding. So we train all the developers for different country, region to use this framework to help them onboarding data faster. We have seen significant improvement after we did a platform transformation. We actually reduced the cost on the operational side. Operations side cost definitely reduced. We have not seen any escalation after we transformed the platform, which is a good thing. We actually seen high demand. More and more people want to onboarding data into this data lake. And we have a much more stable, scalable system, allow fast data processing, fast data onboarding, and we also reduce the cost by using a Spot instance as much as we can to reduce the compute cost. We also minimize the intermediate layer, so that we also minimize the storage cost. With that, we have testimonies from our colleagues, and it was welcomed by the IS operational team and our business colleagues. So the next step, we continue, as Databricks continue to evolve, we continue to develop new features on this platform. The next one, we actually already evaluated once for the multitask job, and as the new feature came out, we're evaluating second time to see if they meet our need for Airflow. If it does, we will replace Airflow with these multitask jobs. And the second one, I already talked about ML operation. This quarter, we just finished ML operation POC, and we will partner with our data science team to help them operationalize model in production. That including model training, model deployment, model monitoring. The last one, we actually already retired one Redshift cluster, but we are continuing evaluating the second Redshift cluster, which is our field reporting cluster, and currently is in progress. And we were not evaluating anything in AWS Frankfurt region or AWS Tokyo region. The reason is Databricks is only in Oregon region. So we are continuing this effort. With that, concludes our journey for Customer C360. And thank you. Now it's time for question and answer. You want to have this?
Any questions out there?
Pardon me, sir. I'll make it easy for you. Hello.
There.
Great work bringing so many data sources and making it useful for your company. And very nice architecture. I wanted to know one thing about the business outcome. I saw you mention about analytics and dashboard or more reports. Did you even explore how you can more alert or kind of send certain actions which a sales team or marketing team can take in real time for some of that decision making as an output of this sophisticated CDP?
So maybe I'll answer that question. So that's, I think, where we are in our journey right now, which is, we've been looking at some of the data to give our marketers insights. But where we want to go is to provide suggestions, right, and automated alerts. So that's where we are in our journey, where I talked about that 4 stages in our value stream. So that's exactly where we're headed next in what we're calling our omni-channel initiative, which is how do we trigger those alerts and provide those suggestions to our marketers, based on the data that we've collected. So not quite there, but as I said, the journey continues. Okay. Great question. Other questions? Yeah.
So I had a question around data quality. I saw there was the framework that you all have laid out talks about the rules about data quality. How are you all looking at data quality? What kind of sense and respond triggers have you all looked at? Could you talk to us a little bit about that, please?
Oh, sorry here. Okay, so as I said, data quality, we have 2 parts of it. 2 parts to it. One part is looking at the raw data, which we look at the file format, look at the columns, look at the column type, column format. We may process them into the system. We may not process them into the system. In terms of the business rule-based data quality, those are the rules given by the business side. Sometimes we're creating, for example, sales data. You should not increase by 50% just because this month's data is coming. So things like that, we also added into the system. In addition, business also give us requirements. Certain of the rules they configure, they want to see them on the dashboard. So we either give them email notification. For example, file quality, we actually have a website along with the file quality. So we have a website, allow user to uploading data. Sometimes they upload data into the system, so they can upload on the website. They can also upload to S3 bucket or SFTP side, allow us to process into the system. But sometimes if they need near real-time response, then they're uploading through the website. We run the same kind of DQ rules as the backend and give them near real-time response. For the business side of processing, we actually deliver to them also based on their requirement. Sometimes they want to see email notification with attachment. Sometimes they want to debug dashboard. So this is how the data is delivered to them. But all the rules, all this the configuration table, every table, we have country, region, and domain, data domain attached to all the rules on all the tables. So it's easy for us to query the table to see how many rules are configured for a particular data set, for a particular domain, for a particular country. So those are in the configuration table. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Great presentation. 2 clarifying questions from your last slide. One, you say you are evaluating multitask job feature as a potential replacement for Airflow. If you can elaborate on that, what are the pitfalls of Airflow and how this is going to help? And the second question is, on the same lines, you are trying to replace Tableau, and you're talking about rich visualization. What are the tools that you're considering for that?
Okay, so for the first question is about Airflow. So on Airflow, Amgen actually utilized a lot of capabilities on Airflow. Maybe not all the companies that utilize, because I know when I talk to AWS, they have the Airflow as a service now, but they don't utilize those features as customized screen. We use Airflow as our operational front end. So one is to monitor the pipeline execution. The other is we also develop some customized screen for us to easily configure, for example, we use Airflow to trigger the cluster. So we have dynamic cluster for Databricks to trigger the job run. But sometimes today I know this data set is huge. What if I want to say I want to have a bigger, in addition to auto scaling, I want to start with maybe 50 nodes to begin with. In that case, we use Airflow. We have many customized GUI developed into Airflow, so that over there you can just type in the node number and then it will trigger for that particular execution. For this kind of feature, I know for sure the multitask does not have that. But in addition to that, the first time when we're evaluating the multitask, it has several features missing from the Airflow. For example, you couldn't restart the job. Now they can. Now they can restart the job. Before, they couldn't restart the job. So you have to, if you trigger this to run, you have to run from the beginning. And also the first time when we evaluated, I couldn't pass the parameter from one task to another, which means from one notebook to another notebook, which is another problem. Now I don't remember all the 7 issues I listed to Databricks, but I listed 7 issues to Databricks. I think some of them are already resolved. Some of them may still not resolved, so we will continue to look at that. So that's for the question for the how do we consider multitask versus Airflow.
Ben, we do have to get on to our next presentation. I apologize. If you can stay after and answer the rest of it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us. Again, a shameless plug here from Amgen. So if you're interested, we're hiring. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.